Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies has noted the 150 million transfer of administrative funds by the National Treasury to assist with ongoing challenges at the South African Post Office. With almost 400 post offices closed nationwide in 2020, in 2023, SAPO was placed under business rescue. The committee chairperson, Khusela Diko, joins me now to talk about the situation and the rescue for the South African Post Office. Khusela, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. These funds are referred to as, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, virement funds, which, in other words, funds that are taken from one budget to another. Where is this money that's now been earmarked for the post office coming from?
Good morning, Iman, and good morning to your viewers, and thank you so much for having us on the program. So the funds, the 150 million that's being transferred to the post office, comes from the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. They have a program, they're one of their flagship programs called SA Connect. When they were of the view that they would not utilize all the funds that had been appropriated for SA Connect, they made a motivation to National Treasury to then move that 150 million to plug some of the gaps at the post office.
So initially, from what I understand, there was a 3.8 billion rand that was needed, or at some point was expected to have been sent SAPO's way. So that has changed. What led to this decision then to rather give them this amount, significantly smaller amount, to manage the South African Post Office operations in the interim?
Iman, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. As you know, the South African Post Office is still under business rescue. So you've got the BRPs there who are responsible for the daily operations. They have full control of the company. So during our oversight visit this week, we spent a considerable amount of time with the BRPs trying to understand where they are. You know that we've been huge advocates of wanting to know what their sustainability strategy, and given that the National Treasury at this point does not seem to be budging on that 3.8 billion rand, what are we going to do? Now, we after that meeting, we issued a statement calling on government to really demonstrate seriousness and urgency around the issues of the post office. That that 250 million, we believe that it's too little to make any meaningful impact. In fact, all it does is to just ensure that the operations of the post office are extended by another month, exactly 1 month. So I think we'll be sitting here at the end of March again, asking where the funding for the post office is going to come from. But I must say that we are heartened and we welcomed some of the interventions that are being done. You'll remember towards the end of last year, we kept speaking about looking for strategic partners who would come in to work with the post office, look at revenue generation models where the post office is able to be returned to solvency, liquidity, and ultimately future-proofing and stability.
Yeah.
Now, the department has started a process engaging with the DBSA, the Development Bank, as the transaction advisors, looking at some of those partnerships, which we think will go a long way to resolving the situation there. But we're not out of the woods yet. We're not anywhere near coming out of the woods yet, but we think that the steady steps that are being made will get us somewhere. Now, as the Portfolio Committee, we have resolved to seek a joint meeting with the Standing Committee on Appropriations. The National Treasury did make a commitment to the 3.8 billion, and it is in the business rescue plan that was adopted by creditors and ultimately became a court order. So it can't be that the National Treasury is just going to totally renege on that commitment. We understand the financial constraints, and we're saying let's find a way where we can meet each other halfway. Ensure that there's at least operational stability, workers are being paid, buildings are being maintained, while then the minister and the department continue to look for more long-term solutions.
Yeah. Well, I just, before I come to my next question, so is this going to be something that's month to month? Because we did have a conversation with the unions involved, and they were concerned about, their livelihoods going forward. They've also been warned, we have been warned as the public of a day zero scenario where, all of their cash reserves, would be completely depleted. I'll come to the sustainability in the long term for the existence of the South African Post Office. But what's your sense on whether, it's unfortunately going to have to be managed on a month-to-month basis, or whether there can be more certainty given in the long term for the availability of funds to ensure the operations can continue and that sought after stability you're talking about can be achieved?
Yeah, man, it can't be month on month. Government funding and budgeting cycles don't work that way. So when they get this environment funding of 150 million, that's really money that would have been left over from the current financial year. Now, you would know that Minister is going to table the budget on the 12th of March, and unless in that budget, which perhaps even then it might be too late because it's already delivered the medium-term budget policy statement, which sets out the outlook. And he has been the Minister of Finance I'm talking about, he has been very clear about the need to ensure that he moves away from any bailouts to state-owned entities. So at this point in time, it does look bleak for the post office, but we are continuing those engagements, because if the minister can at least commit to funding for the post office, an amount, I promise you, I'm not advocating for 3.8 billion, because as the portfolio committee, we have interrogated the business rescue practitioners. And we think that that amount is really, it's inflated to a large extent. A lot of the things that they're asking for, they can be done more innovatively, more creatively, working in partnership with others. So right now, it's a crisis situation because they've got 150 million. They will go back to day zero, 3.0, because we've heard at least 2 day zeros by now. And it's an unsustainable way of running a business. I think I agree with the workers when they say that this situation is untenable, and we're hoping that the minister is going to be engaging with his counterpart in cabinet to try and bring a more realistic and a more sustainable solution.
Yeah.
As indicated, we're also looking at, seeing if we can find some middle ground with our colleagues in Parliament who oversee appropriations.
Yeah, I mean, you want the BRPs to, take an even sort of closer look at what they've already asked for and cut some more. So what are some of the areas you believe that they can actually go further on?
Let's start by saying that the BRPs can't be there forever. And I think that's our starting point as the portfolio committee. They have a job to do, which is to get the post office at least on a position of liquidity and solvency. Now, they've done great work thus far. We commend them for at least, assisting us to resolve the debt situation. From debts that were in excess of 4 billion, you're sitting at about 492 million that is outstanding now. They've also done a lot in terms of rationalization of costs, even though it came at a huge cost with a number of branches closed, with thousands of people losing their livelihoods, but at least you have a reduced cost structure. Now, it costs us in the excess of 120 or so million rand to run the post office per month. And in the period, unfortunately, that the business rescue practitioners have been there, we've seen a tanking of revenues because you are shutting down branches, you are having a Section 198 process that takes away some workers, and there's no investment that goes in there.
Okay.
So when you look at the things that the business rescue practitioners, we believe, should be looking at, is that when it comes to the real estate of the post office, you've got a huge property portfolio. How are they leveraging that property portfolio, at least as part of their cash generation initiatives?
All right.
But also you have a huge industry that is e-commerce, and we don't think that the post office is really playing its rightful place in there. I can go on and on,
Yeah.
Iman. I can hear you speaking in there, but there's a lot of ideas on the
because I have to wrap, but I think that the ideas, as you say, that they have to certainly do something entirely different to what they've done hitherto, and perhaps a subject then for another conversation. But thanks for your time this morning. The Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, Khusela Diko, that's committee chair. Thank you very much for your time this morning.